And we're live. Donde ASR. This is Jeff with the Island Guardians. I'm gonna say it again. Miguel's not here, R.I.P. But he's alive. It's fine. All right, but I'm joined by another guest today. This is Michael. I've never asked you how to say your last name. Is it Bio or Bio?
Bio, yeah.
Bio. Michael Bio. He got 76th place at NAIC. So we're gonna do another rundown. Get some thoughts on the deck and just talk about the matchups. So we had Charizard in the building here, so I'm going to quickly go over his list. 2 of the 70 HP Charmanders with the Blazing Destruction, 1 Heat Tackle, 1 of the other 70 HP Ember ones, 2 Charmeleons, 3 Zard EX, 2 Pidgeot line, 1 Bibarel, the 1 Rotom, 1 Lumineon, 1 Manaphy, 1 Radzard, 1 Cleffa. So that's pretty normal. 4 Arven, 2 Boss, 2 Iono, 1 Turo, 1 Roxanne, 4 Candies, 4 Ultra Ball, 3 Buddy-Buddy Poffin, 2 Counter Catchers, 2 Super Odds, 1 Unfair Stamp, 1 Nest Ball, 1 Lost Vacuum, 1 Pal Pad, 1 Canceling Cologne, 1 Forest Sealstone, 1 Defiance Band, 1 Temple of Sinnoh, 1 Collapse Stadium, and 6 Fire Energies. So I'll throw it over to Michael now just to get his thoughts on why Charizard, and that's what you play. Why Charizard?
So it goes back to kind of rotation. So pre-rotation all season, I've been playing Gardevoir. To everybody. Everybody in Indiana definitely knows that. I was a Gardevoir fiend.
It's pretty funny because I've recently played Gardevoir, and they're like, "Oh, Michael's back." They were referencing because I've been playing it a lot now, so it's really funny.
It's funny too. It's funny because since rotation, I've actually been a pretty big Gardevoir hater, just because the deck just becomes its matchup spreads become inherently way worse. Like the problem with Gardevoir, like the entire season, was that like for all the events that I played like locally, and even like I played it in Peoria, Toronto, and in Portland. Like, the matchup spread is just so unbelievably dominant when you set up, like, on paper, but the deck just takes, like, it's just inherently flawed just the way it's, like, it is, where it's, like, you're never finishing 3 games. You need to set up, like, if you prize
it takes so long.
If you prize, like, 1 card of the 16-card combo you need, you just, like, lose immediately. Or it's, like, you have so many micro decisions that, you set up, you're like, oh, I can't lose from this spot, and then you, like, get your Greninja bossed up, and you're like, oh, I have no way to get this out of the active, I just lose, right?
Yeah.
So going into like rotation, I went to EUIC this year. I was like, okay, I don't know what deck to play. I was pretty close to playing Lost Zone just because like the matchup spread was really good, but I had only ever played Lost Zone a handful of times in like meaningful situations, and like I tested it for NAIC last year, and I just like didn't like it. I couldn't beat. It wasn't the Kyogre build, to be fair, but I just couldn't. I just didn't like the way the deck built. I just had not as much agency as other decks. So I played a lot of different stuff, and I ended up settling on Charizard. Now it was a much worse build. It was a lot similar to like what people were playing before rotation, which is like just no Bibarel. I was playing Maxbow, which was in theory was really good for Mirror, but in reality it wasn't that great because there's so many matchups were just not useful. Like, literally hard. So I went there. I ended up going 4-2-3. I got points, but I had a really, really like poor time. I just didn't play very well. I wasn't like in the right mind space. I got points, which was like really important. But I ended up actually played against a guy playing like the Tord build with 2 Turo and Prime Catcher, and I just got thoroughly worked. And I was like, oh my god! I was like, this is not even close.
A little eye-opening. Maybe I should play that.
I was like, So then, after EUSC though, I was kind of like put off of Charizard because I was like, okay, well, the mirror experience I had. It was just like totally different how the mirror actually played like with the new build. So when I went to Orlando a week later, I actually switched to Lost Gudra because I was like, you know what? At this point, I was pretty like down on my invite. I'm like, I'm gonna miss it. So I'm like, you know what? I played it last year and I didn't make day 2. It was my first regional last year, so I was like, forget it. I'm playing it this time.
Yeah.
And my buddy and we came up with a really, really good list. And I ended up making day 2. But the thing is, I went like 7-0 versus Charizard, 14-0 in games. Like it was just disgusting.
Yeah.
But the problem was that like at the major I did like super well with it, but then when I played locally against other people, like people who were pretty good, because like the New Jersey area is pretty good, they were just running me over because they knew how to get around it. Like they would sit on their Prime Catcher, and like with more people, like figuring out how to play against the deck, I was like, you know what, like against better players, I can't really, I don't have the agency I want against it's like a Lost Zone deck. So then for Indy, I kind of like full committed. So Tor's build was obviously like super good.
Yeah.
But it was, I was like, okay, I don't want to play the exact 60. And I saw a build that Rowan Stavino had put out where he was playing 3 boss instead. And I was a really big fan of the 2 Charmeleon too.
Yeah.
But I saw a thing with 3 boss, and I'm like, you know what? Like, the 3 boss is like super broken. It's like, I'm just gonna go to 3 boss because just having raw counts of the card is just, I think, so much better. Also because the Yelchier wasn't nearly as good against like all the controlling decks because they were now playing the Sandshrew, which blocks it. And also against like Mirror, if you're playing Pal Pad, it can still get Eeried, but also it's just like so many times at that time in Mirror, like you just don't want to Pal Pad because you want to just slam it. Like I won so many games in Indy, which is, I ended up playing it. I spent so many games just by like fishing for 3rd boss, like just having it in deck, or like you prize one, you have to Ultra Ball one away. It's like I just have another one now. It was super, super good. And I ended up I bubbled out of top 32, which is really unfortunate, but I did really well. And I beat almost every mirror I played. I only lost 1 because he Eeried 2 of my Rare Candy on the first turn of the game, and I prized it. So after that, after my indie performance, I was like, okay, like this deck is super broken. Like my ties and losses were honestly just me kind of getting sacked. Like there was only one round in day 2. I played against a Lost team and we tied just because like it was back and forth, we didn't finish. But every game I was like, I literally am just beating everybody. Like I can't lose, which is crazy. So then like before NAIC, I was like, okay, like, granted like Dragapult is getting a lot of hype and the Dragapult matchup's super bad, but kind of like my friends and we had kind of broken down the format, and like leading up to, I'm like, you know what, like Dragapult doesn't really beat that much stuff. Like it doesn't beat Lugia, it gets run over by Miraidon. There's a lot of decks that beat it. So I knew the top 4 decks were definitely going to be Lugia, Gardevoir, Dragapult, and either Lost Zone
some type
or
of Lost variant.
Ogerpon.
A Raging Bullet,
So all of those, most of those decks have pretty good Dragapult matchup. Like, you know what, like the card, the deck is not like broken. Like the lists weren't like as good at the time. Like people were playing like Xatu and stuff, which that card is terrible. And I was like, you know what, like if I can hedge the 8% or 7% Dragapult, like I actually kind of run over like every other deck. Like Lost Zone is the only one that's kind of suspect. I only played 1, or no, I played 2, but it was only suspect because I wasn't playing Jirachi, I was playing second Charmeleon. And it just so happened the only 2 Lost Zone players I played against were pretty good. So it didn't really work out for me in that for that thing. But I was hedging. I was beating every other matchup. I was like, I just kind of beat everything here. Like even like all the counter decks too, because I knew Lugia was going to be probably the most played deck. And the Lugia decks, so like the Thorn, any Future Hands or Miraidon, like I just completely destroy them.
Yeah, the consistency of the Charizard, like it's just like it's already been so refined that like it's a good deck, but then it came up on NAIC where we had all the new cards, so like not that many people stuck with Charizard, but it's still like it's still so busted. Like it's so good. Pidgeot Charizard's nasty.
Exactly. Like the thing is that the style of the build just didn't change. The only really changes I had to make, I wanted to put in Temple for Lugia because the legacy energy was concerning, and then I had to put Unfair Stamp in because most people were like leading, like before NAIC, people were still putting in like Max Belt, and I had some consideration of Prime Catcher, but I was like, people don't realize how obscenely broken Unfair Stamp is. Like it's just an instant Roxanne.
Yeah, it's insane.
It's like how does no
it's a
like,
turn 2 Roxanne, which is nuts.
Exactly. I'm just like, people don't realize being able to like have an extra Roxanne, like it is so crazy. And I was like, anybody good, I was telling my friends too, I was like, anybody who's going to this event that is good at Pokemon will be playing Unfair Stamp if they're not if they're playing Charizard or other decks. Like okay, Lugia, they're obviously playing Legacy Energy. Like the Bolts, they're going to be playing Prime Catcher, but people should be playing Unfair Stamp, right?
Especially like in a Charizard build, like you're kind of slow-ish, but you're probably going to end up leading like Cleffa, so they're going to knock it out if they don't have a better play, and then you're like, all right, suck on this Unfair Stamp real quick, and we'll play.
Also, against the Lost Zone decks, right? If they go turn 2 Cram, I just instantly Unfair Stamp them into a 35-40 card deck, and I just win immediately.
Because
then I just shove a Charizard, and it's like, like in testing, when I was testing Lost Box, I couldn't beat my brother, who's like, he doesn't play that much, but he was playing Charizard against me, and just like turn 2 Unfair Stamp, I'm like, I just lose. So I was like, I look at like Super Rod and Nest Ball in my hand. I'm like,
I don't know what to do now.
So that was kind of my rationale. In terms of like overall deck building, like it's pretty standard. I tried to keep it as similar to my indie list as possible, and I just wanted to keep it like, because I knew like that style of list was broken. Compared to like now Worlds, where we're adding the Dusk Noir, it creates a little bit more thing. Also, like Charizard is really good when people aren't like expecting it. Like for NAIC or EUIC, Tord was able to beat everybody just because his list was so much better than everybody else's. But a lot of other Charizards were just getting killed by all of the control and all of the counter decks. So for NAIC, there were a lot of people that were just like, "Oh, Charizard's bad. No one's gonna play it."
Yeah,
it's like,
it happens.
like,
Always
thanks,
happens with
bro.
Pokemon. Pokemon's always like, "Oh, it's good, bad. It's good, bad," and then people like just don't pick it. So I'm glad you stuck with it because obviously it worked very well.
Yeah, I can't tell you how many people day one that were just like, I flip over a Charmander, they're like, "Wow, you're playing Like we'll go into my matchups. They're like, "Wow, you're playing Charizard," and I'm like, "Dude, like." Literally get good. Like you should have expected it. So
all right, well we'll start it there then. I mean you've talked enough about the list, so it's pretty standard. We've most seen it all. The only two changes you said was Unfair Stamp as opposed to Prime Catcher, and then Sinnoh for the Lugias. That's basically the main two swaps. So but we're going
just really quick too. I cut a fourth Poffin. I really didn't want to cut Poffins because obviously it's consistency for the Canceling Cologne because I just didn't want to get walled by the corner.
Yeah, that's true.
Because that's just an auto loss. Like if you're playing against the Bolt matchup, which is usually pretty good, you just get completely auto walled. Also, we switched from 3-3 Iono Arven to 4-2 because I was talking to actually Jason Klasinski, the GOAT, my king.
The GOAT.
And he was because I was talking to him about his theoretical indie list because he was going to try and go, and he was like, I don't understand why people aren't maxing out counts of Arven.
Yeah, Arven's busted.
It's just like it's how you set up. So I was like, you know what, like that's kind of right, and we tested it, and we're like, you know what, he's right.
Yeah.
So that was it. So shout out to him. But
I'll piggyback on the Arven real quick. Miles and Cameron always bring it up because I talked about Arven right when it came out. I'm like, dude, I'm putting 4 Arvens in everything, and they're like, bro, you're nuts. But that was like way before people did it in Charizard. So another shout out to me. I called out Sableye from the beginning. I called out I know what I'm doing sometimes. But anyways, jump into round one. 76th place. Go ahead, round one.
Yeah. So round one, I pair into a newer player. He's playing Ogrepon, Raging Bolt. Yep. We were talking a little bit before the match. Like he was like, "Oh yeah, it's my first like international. I only played like one regional." So when people say that, he also said that after the match, he said once he saw me sit down with because I was using the 2017 NAIC match, he goes, "Once I saw that in the lilac sleeves, like I knew I was in trouble." And I'm like, "Oh man, you can't say that, bro." But so we sat down. I 2-0'd him, pretty clinical. I mean, both games I had fairly reasonable starts. I was able to get the one problem with like some of the moon matchups, the previous format was like, or like before we had Cleffa, was that you had to put Rotom down to kind of get set up, and then if you go behind 2 prizes in the matchup, it becomes a little tricky because you have to force a Radzard and then probably like unfair or Roxanne them, and then you have to force them to miss the ball so you can catch back up in the prize trade. Yeah. But both games I was able to just go Cleffa, Charmander, Pidgey, Bidoof, and then from there he takes the first knockout, and then I kind of roll him. Both games I was able to go like turn 2 Unfair Stamp, and he kind of just like did nothing. I beat him in like 25 minutes. It was pretty good. He was a really nice guy, but it was pretty clinical.
So in general, overall, what is game plan like for people who aren't that familiar with the game? What's game plan playing against Raging Bolt? Like you feed a single prize and then you go?
Yeah, so you want to keep your board single prize in the beginning. So ideally, you want to go Cleffa. If you don't have Cleffa in the deck, that's fine. And if you have put Rotom down, it's also fine because you force them to find Prime Catcher. If ideally you don't want to do that, you leave Cleffa, and then if they're smart, they won't take a knockout, and it puts you in kind of a weird spot because you don't want to evolve into a 2-prizer and then punch into them because unless they put down Squawkabilly, you can't one-shot anything.
Right.
But if they take the first knockout on like a Raging on like your Cleffa or whatever, then you just initiate the prize trade because from there, they still need to take 3 knockouts, and you also need to take 3 knockouts. But now you're attacking. Also, if they take 1 prize, then your Charizard's now doing 210, which KOs any of the Ogrepons. But then if you Arven again, which you usually do, so like turn 1 you'll Arven for like Poffin, Stone, and then turn 2 you'll Arven for probably Candy and Defiance Band. Now you're doing 240 and you kill a Raging Bolt. So if you pair that like Raging Bolt KO with an Unfair Stamp, they usually can't play the game, but even if you can't do that, you just end up winning the prize trade, so it doesn't matter. You also have Radiant Charizard at the end, so even if like you can't, like if you get like Iono to 2, you just have to find like any combination of energy plus Radiant Charizard, and then you just win immediately. The matchup is pretty good, but it can get a little hairy if you get like some awkward hands or like you miss Pidgeot. That's kind of like the main thing. It's like you always want to prioritize getting Pidgeot out.
Yeah, you gotta have it.
So yeah, cool. Yeah, so that round was pretty good. Next round, I hit my first Lugia. I actually lost this round. The guy who I played against like wasn't, in the first game, I kind of got a little too greedy where I had like an okay setup, but then I had a really weird thing where he had a lone Lugia V active. and he only had like 2 cards in his hand or something like that, like a really low hand size.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, I could like just go like Candy into Pidge because I wasn't gonna be able to get Candy Pidge, Candy Zard. I was like, okay, I go Candy Pidge and then can quick search for like Charmeleon because I had a Charizard in my hand.
Yeah.
Or I had some combination of it. I think I had like an Ultra Ball actually. But I was like, actually, if I just go like Candy Zard here and he doesn't like do anything because he did nothing last turn, he didn't play supporter. So I was like, okay, if I just like punch into this and then he can't do anything, I just win because he can't do anything.
Yeah.
So I got Candy Zard with no Pidgeot, and I punched into him, and then he top decks research and researches into like he researches away like double Archeops. I'm like, okay, cool. And he gets into the game, and I was still like into the game. But I got to a really weird spot where there was one point in the game too where I could have Poffined for Manaphy because I was like, okay, like Wellspring Ogerpon really isn't that good of a card in Lugia. So I was like, one of those things like I'm not gonna respect it until he shows it to me.
Yeah.
And at the time I had his hand was really not that great. It was only like his board state was super weak, and I had a Temple in play. So I was like, okay, I'm just gonna like Poffin for Cleffa as a pivot, even though I had Pidgeot, which was kind of stupid. So I put it down, and then I knocked him out, and then he top decks the Wellspring Ogerpon. So he benches it, and then he plays Professor's Research. So I have a Temple in play, so he needs to hit, like, because he has something with energy active, so he needs to hit, because he only had 1 Archeops, he needs to hit 1 energy and the Stadium Bounce. So of course, he researches, and I'm like, are you kidding me? Because I had just attack with Radiant Charizard. And if I just attack with regular Charizard instead, granted he has the outs to, he would have needed to have drawn Sinnoh plus energy in order to kill my Charizard.
Right, okay.
But I was like, okay, like, I don't even know if he's playing Wellspring Ogerpon, right? Or he could have prized his Legacy energy.
True.
At this point I had 1 prize, he had 2. So, of course, he researches and he draws Jet Energy plus, because he couldn't grab Double Turbo, he drew Jet Energy plus Jamming Tower, the 1 Jamming Tower deck. So he was able to knock out the 2 things on the bench, and I was like, oh my god. And it was like a 25-minute game 1, so I'm like, oh my god, I can't believe I'm about to tie to this guy. But it was in the second game, I opened like absolutely nothing, and I completely bricked. Like I instant charged like 4 turns in a row, and I lost. And I was kind of tilted. But I was like, you know what? Like this is kind of a blessing in disguise because I want to stay off all the ties. Like ties are my worst enemy because I don't want to hit any control, any stall. I don't want to hit any of that stuff, right? So I was like, okay, fine. Like I lost, right? The next round, I paired against another Lugia, and I was like, okay, like, this is fine, right? Except this guy actually drew Lugia hands, and I was able to set up pretty fairly. I beat him pretty clinically. Like, game 1, he scoops in, like, 5 minutes because he opens, like, Minccino plus something else. I think he opens, like, Minccino plus Iron Hands, and his hand is just 6 energies.
So he just couldn't
do
chop
anything.
it out,
Yeah, he just couldn't do anything. And then in the second game, he opens Lone Minccino, and I actually whiff the turn 2 Candy Zard to win.
Yeah.
And then he's able to knock out he's able to boss knock out my Charmeleon. So it was kind of all off. I ended up I kind of took an unnecessary risk of Ionoing, but my hand was like I had the 4 Sealstone on board, so I was able to pick up any of the pieces I missed. Right. And I ended up hitting Candy Zard off it, and I ended up beating him in like 20 minutes. So that was pretty good. That was more. I kind of needed that just to get myself back into it because after the round 2 loss, you just feel awful. You're like,
it's always nice when you lose to a deck and then turn right around and play the same deck again. So like you can you get a little bit of like, did I really mess this up, or like I know what I'm doing. Okay, I won this time. But yeah, you can't beat dead hands. It happens to Lugia. I mean, it's just but
exactly. So that was that round. So 2-1. I'm like feeling okay. I feel a little bad though because a bunch of my friends are they're 3-0. So like, oh, like how'd you lose a round, blah blah. And I'm like, you know what, guys, like it's still round 3. Like we got a lot of Pokemon to play, right?
Yep.
So round 4, I pair against a quad Iron Thorns. Now, in theory, you might think that it's a really bad matchup for me, but I'm playing Canceling Cologne, which shuts off the ability. So it gives me a turn. The whole point of that deck is like they try to play 4 hammer. And they just try to like deny your energy and stuff like that. So in like it's really not a bad matchup. Like you just kind of have to get a little lucky with your energy draws. Yeah. Also, Bibarel is your best friend in this matchup because you get to still draw cards like under the lock, which is like super good.
Yep.
Because if you don't have Bibarel, then it just becomes you just need to draw like super well because you have to like double attach and have them not like flip double heads like Crushing Hammer or flip heads at all. So against him, I took it pretty slow in the first game. I got Cleffa. I got pretty set up. I kind of got double Charmeleon down. And then I went one turn. He was not ready for, because he had 2 Iron Thorns down, I think. And he ended up having Legacy Energy on the active, which was which is like in theory really annoying.
Yeah.
But he took like 2 prizes, and then literally I went Candy. I think I went Candy Zard, and then left another one on the bench, another Charmeleon on the bench. Temple of Sinnoh, Unfair Stamp, and he was like, "Yep, pretty good." So I ended up knocking out his first Iron Thorns, and then the second one, he punched into my Zard. And then I Roxanned him again, I think, because he boss killed something on the bench, and because I think he hit gear into, boss or something like that. And I was like, you know what, like Roxanne again. And then he looked at his hand and he just like scooped immediately because he only had 1 Iron Thorns, and I'm just gonna knock it out because I had 2 Charizard established this turn. When I Infernal Rained, the first time, I put all 3 onto the active Charizard because like if he hits a
Crushing Hammer,
he doesn't have to find energy. So I just went nothing against that. And he ended up hitting a heads on Crushing Hammer, but I still had 2 energy on, so it made no difference. So that was good. So he scooped that one up in like 10 minutes.
And they have to 3 hit you, right? Because Iron Thorn is only 140, and then it's not a Yume, it's a required. You have to move an energy right off of it to the bench.
Exactly.
So like, seems like a really bad matchup for Thorns.
Yeah, but it just, especially because I have the Canceling Cologne. Because usually, like if you're only playing 6 energy, and in theory you have no search, so you can't you need to draw into it.
That's true.
So like they could just kind of up you, and they also have they also played a bunch of Team Diva, which I didn't realize. So in the second game, the start was kind of similar. It was a little bit worse, but he had a much better start this time.
Yeah.
And I did the same kind of play where I went Canceling Cologne. I actually was able to get, my hand was so good that I went Canceling Cologne. I was able to even get a quick search off. Nice. I was able to go Candy Zard, like double evolve into Zard, and then go quick search.
Nice.
So it was pretty good.
Yep.
But he hit me with the I wasn't expecting it because the Charizard I had active was the one with the Charmeleon on it, and I had the benched one that was candied, which was a mistake. So he punched it on the other turn, and I made the kind of foolish decision to counter catcher up because he had 2 Iron Thorns on his board at this point.
Yep.
And I made kind of the foolish decision to counter catcher up the one with the future booster capsule on it because I just wanted to give him not like a free pivot.
Yeah.
And like less damage because he had no double turbo on there, so it's doing 160, which in hindsight really makes no difference.
Yeah.
So I killed that one, and then he ended up gearing into Arven, and then Arven's for Devo, and I'm like, oh my god, I feel like the world's biggest idiot right now because I had no more. I only had 1 rare candy left.
Right.
And fortunately, I had an Arven in my hand.
Arven's busted, dude. Play 4.
Yeah, I know. So I was like, because he had 3 prizes left. I'm like, okay, well, like this is kind of annoying, but I was like, I had an energy in my hand. I had energy Candy Zard because the Charmander on the bench had no energy on it. And I was like, you know what? Like this is actually fine because like as long as I just don't like whiff off of like an Iono and a Roxanne, like I'm just fine. Like I'll draw my last energy. So I literally just went Candy Zard, attach energy to it because he only had 2 cards in hand. I'm like, if he has hammers and he hits heads, okay, we'll go to game 3 because the games are going pretty quick.
Yeah.
And so I do that. He ends up bossing up my Charizard and punches into it. And then I was like, okay, Roxanne with a 11 card deck, and then I hit. There's the first card I hit off the top was the energy.
Nice.
So I did that and I beat him, and I was like, okay, like there we go, like Iron Thorns, like cringe deck, Canceling Cologne MVP. Definitely not what the map it's there for, but
right, yeah. Hey, it works, you know.
Yeah. So
so now you're 3-1.
3-1, yeah.
3-1 going into round 5.
Yeah. So round 5, I pair against a Future Hands that was also playing Iron Thorns, which in theory is, it's a really good matchup for me, but it can get kind of tricky because they can now hands my Pidgeot and stuff.
Yeah. But
the thing is they play non-Iron Thorns cards, so I have access to all my abilities pretty readily just with counter catcher and stuff. So the first game, I flip over Pidgey and he goes first because I won the coin flip, and he doesn't know what he's playing against, so he gets like the full suite of like Iron Crown and stuff out, which for like this matchup against Charizard, you don't want to put any Iron Crown down because right at the beginning I can't kill anything, but Iron Crowns are weak to Dark, so those are things I can instantly KO, and then I just immediately win the prize trade. Now I also don't want to knock out any Miraidon, so I'm okay with him Miraidoning like a Charmander or something because then I can have access to counter catcher, and then from there I'm never losing the prize trade. I mean, they can get cute with if you like get Iono and get your Pidgeot killed. And then you have to like punch into a Miraidon, then it gets really hairy because then they could just out trade you. But this guy, in the first game, he like overextended his bench, and I had like an okay start. enough to where I was able to counter catch or get all my stuff up. And then I was able to KO an Iron Crown, and then we just kind of traded from there. He was only able to ant my Pidgeot, and then I was able to put down another Pidgey and get another Pidgeot out the following turn, but it was just too much. So he conceded pretty quickly. In the second game, I opened like Manaphy Pass, or it was like Manaphy Charmander Pass, and then he was able to Iron Bundle, kill my only Charmander, which isn't like a death sentence, but my hand was like kind of like bad enough where I was like, you know what, like it's probably just worth it for me to scoop, because it only was like 20 minutes into the round. I'm like, we can finish this. And the kid, I didn't recognize his name, but I could tell because he had a nationals mat. I was like, okay, this kid has like been playing for a while, so he's not, you know, he kind of knows what's going on, because he knows we don't want to tie. Because at this point, when I'm on the X1 record, no one wants to tie because ties don't really do much. Like, I just want to win out. And you know, the more games I win, the better chance it puts me in. Like, you know, later on, like obviously it's better to tie than lose, but you know, you don't want to try and play for tie. You want to, you know, I don't want to play, be like, okay, I have maybe a 10% chance to win this game in a pretty favorable matchup. I'd rather just scoop the cards up now because my win percentage for this round just goes up the longer game I have, because if I just set up in game 3, I just win anyway, right? Because I'm, you know, my deck is better. So that's exactly what I do. And in game 3, he opens Iron Thorns, which is a little problematic because I prize Cleffa, but my hand is like okay enough where when he Iron Thorns or he actually retreats the Iron Thorns, I think, into a Miraidon to kill my only Pidgey. But it was okay because I was able to go Charizard, Charmeleon, bench another Pidgey, bench up a Bibarel, Unfair Stamp, and then I hit Counter Catcher off the Unfair Stamp to kill a Iron Thorns or Iron Crown. So that was good. And then from there, off of the Unfair Stamp, he drew like 2 energy, and then he drew like 4 energy per turn, like 3 turns in a row, then just conceded. So that was good. So nice. So similar kind of thing, but it's obviously a little bit easier for me. So that was good.
So now you're 4-1 going around 6.
4-1. So 4-1 in round 6. So I pair another Future Hands with Iron Thorns. This guy, it was really funny because after I flipped over, so he won the coin flip, so he went second. And I flip over Charmander, and I ended up opening Poffin. And during my Poffin search, he's like, "Yeah, I knew you're gonna be playing Charizard." I'm like, "How? Like, I have no idea who you are. Like, how do you know that?" He goes, "Oh, I looked up your Limitless page." I was like, "Dude, I have 2 Limitless entries. Like, what are you talking about?" He's like, "Well, like, I saw like your best finish was with Charizard, and it was recent success, so I knew you'd be playing Charizard." I was like, "That's some crazy logic, but sure, you know, whatever. Like, congratulations, you paired into a bad matchup." So, game 1. He like completely mismanages his board. He gets out like 4 Iron Crown to go like Miraidon kill my Bibarel for some reason, and then I just go like, I have like Counter Catcher in my hand. I go Counter Catcher, kill his only Iron Hands in play, and then he just like plays it out for like no reason. Like he has like no win. I have double Charizard established on my board. But, like I have game on board, and he just like plays out like a 2-minute turn for no reason. I'm just like, at that point I'm like sitting there. I'm like, can you just like do something so I can just instantly win? Because I don't want to. Because he's playing slow. I'm like, I just want to finish this game. Because it's almost like it's a similar kind of thing where it's like if you're getting slow played when you're losing, it just feels really bad. But if you're losing, you have like agency to just concede. But I'm like in a completely unlosable position here. Like I don't, because he has no Murata on the board. Like I just cannot. All I do is promote and attack. Like that's all I do, because he killed my Bibarel and everything is one retreat. And I have 5 energy in my head, so I'm like, just do something so I can just win. So I win game 1, and then in game 2 he has a pretty bad start. So I was able to beat him relatively quickly. It was just very straightforward. I got like Cleffa. I was able to go like single prize board. He kills my Cleffa. I go Charizard, Candy Pidge. So that was pretty clinical. So another good matchup for me. So I'm feeling pretty good. So at this point I'm 5-1.
Nice.
So at this point I'm like, okay, I only need 1 more win for my invite, because I only need top 5-12. And at this point I knew I needed 5-2-2 would bubble, and 6-3 would lock it up. So I was like, okay, you know, at this point, I'm like, obviously, I want to make D2. I want to try and make some money, and I want to, you know, I want to win. You know me. You know, everyone is the shop. I like winning. So I was like, okay, like, but if I get to 6-2, I'm playing out regardless. But I just need to get to 6 wins, because that guarantees it. Like at 18 match points, I guarantee it. So I'm like, okay, fine, like 5-1. Now I'm finally getting back into the territory where players are going to be actually good. So I'm like, all right, fine. So I'm sitting around talking to my buddies, and then I see my pairing for round 6, and I see Andrew Hedrick, and I'm like,
nice, let's go.
So I know his 60, because Isaiah Chaville and I were talking a lot before the event. He and I play retro together, but we were talking about like a lot of decks leading up to it. And so So yeah, but the funny part was I knew his 60, or I didn't know about the Iron Thorns, but I knew like he was playing Lost Box and it was a very turbo version because it was similar. Andrew or Isaiah ended up telling me before the event that they settled on because he played Lugia, but Andrew and all them, like a lot of the Chicago guys and the Midwest guys, settled on a 60 that was like 1 or 2 cards off of the list that I sent Isaiah. I was playing Spiritomb instead. He was playing, they were playing Iron Thorns, and I was playing 2 Sableye. They were just playing another Pokestop. So I knew basically the entire list, but I knew it was very consistent, and I obviously knew he was a very good player.
Shout out to Isaiah Chevelle, by the way. I'm 1-0 against him. We'll just put that out there.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Nice. That's funny. Good guy. Shout out to him.
He's
we're
cool.
actually getting he and I we're getting new Stantler shirts, like new EX like themed shirts for Worlds this year from our friends in Japan. So it's pretty cool.
Nice.
Also, this was going up before Worlds, but I'm telling you right now, he just sent me. I won't leak the list. He sent me absolutely broken Ogerpon list, or not Ogerpon, Regidrago list. So if I play Regidrago for Worlds, that'll be, hell will freeze over before I play that deck for Worlds. But if I do, and if it wins Worlds, just know I said it right here.
Right.
This is video proof. Miles, I'm looking at you. This is video proof when I tell you I was on the deck 2 months before.
You heard it here, Island Guardians, 14th best place.
Exactly. So I sit down and I'm like, what's up, Andrew? He goes, he's like, I know who you are. I'm like, I had a feeling. So he knows I'm playing Charizard. So he wins the coin flip and he goes, I'll go second. I'm like, all right, cool. Yep. So I get like a pretty, I get 2 Poffins, but like my hand is not very good. And obviously I can't grab Rotom because I don't have any outs to it. But I opened Cleffa because I was opening Cleffa or opening Manaphy. And I'm like, I don't feel like getting my Manaphy murdered by Charmander, right?
Yeah.
So that was fine. His start was pretty insane. He had like 3 vacuums in his hand. Like he only plays 3 vacuums. He had all 3 in his opening hand. He top decks like Colress, but he's a really good start. And he gets like 7 cards in the Lost Zone on the second turn, but he doesn't opt to Cramorant, which is the correct play, right? So he benches Cramorant, but he doesn't attack with it, which is really funny. Or maybe he didn't bench it, but that was that. On my second turn, I literally go like, draw for turn. And then I Arven for Ultra Ball to Ultra Ball for Charmeleon pass. Yeah. And from there, he just goes like Colress again, gets his Sableye established. Sableye is another thing. Because actually, I didn't Arven in the second turn. I Ultra Balled. I didn't have Arven in my hand because I was like, I really need Arven to go grab Unfair Stamp here. So he Sableye kills, because the thing is, I was playing 2 of the 50 HP Pidgeys because I was like, if I pair Dragapult, I lose anyway, so it like doesn't matter.
Yeah, that's true.
Not really thinking about, a good Lost Zone player,
Yeah.
So he kills a Charmander in my Pidgey, and I'm like, okay, that's really bad. And it's even worse because I top deck Pidgey out with Rare Candy in my hand, and I'm like, oh, lovely. So at that point, I kind of look at the board. Andrew and I obviously like know what we're doing, so we were prize checking for like 5 minutes total. At this point, I kind of like look at the clock, and I'm like, I don't really think I can win this game reliably because his setup is so good. So I just scoop immediately. So I go second in the second game. I get a pretty reasonable start. We both get reasonable starts, and it's a really back and forth game. Yeah. But he ends up cramming me on the second turn, and my hand is pretty good enough where I'm able to Arven for Unfair Stamp. And I'm like, I literally just win this game because he only had 2 Comfeys down because he prized 2 of them. Yeah. And I was like, okay, like Unfair Stamp here. Like I go Candy Bird, Charizard, Unfair Stamp. I'm good, right? But I Arven, and I'm looking, and I have no Unfair Stamp. And I'm like, all right. So I have no stamp. Like, okay, this is fine. So I kill his Comfey, and it's really back and forth. Like, I kill his stuff, he goes Raikou on Bird, I go, Roxanne kill Raikou, or he wasn't playing Raikou, he uses Iron Thorns, and he kills my thing, then he amps my Bibarel, I kill his Iron Hands, and then he ends up crucially Pal Padding in 2 Colress back into his deck, because at this point my board is Charizard, I was able to, I don't know if I reestablished Pidgeot or something, but my board is like Charizard, Charmeleon, and Bibarel, because he didn't amp my Bibarel, he amped my Manaphy. Okay. So his only out here is to draw into Super Rod. He needs outs to recycle his Sableye, and then he wins because he's able to KO my Bibarel with 1 prize left. So I own him to 1, and he Comfeys into his Colress, and then he Colresses into he Comfeys into Colress, and then the card I honored him into was Super Rod because he still had 2 left. Yeah. Super Rod's back in, Sableye Psychic Energy, my best friend, Sableye Psychic Energy. Yeah. And he had like a 10-card deck, and actually he Pokestopped before he did it, so which was correct sequencing because he got rid of 3 cards that weren't
Sableye
super
thin cards. Yeah.
I mean, he knew his outs, right? And then he was able to draw into Colress. And then he said he Colressed into another switch card. So even if he whiffed one of them, he probably would have drew it anyway.
Yeah.
So then he got that. So he beat me. But he was like, yeah, that was like by far the best game like I've played all day today. Like that was, you know, not even close to the other ones. So I was like, okay, like that gives me like a little bit of sauce. But he beat me, and he was like, yeah, obviously I knew like your basic exact 60 before the match. I'm like, lovely, because him and Isaiah are roommates. They live together. So as soon as he saw my name, he's like, okay, like here's a 60. He sent it to me like, you know, a week ago, because my list. Because when I got to New Orleans, all my friends were testing. They all played Gardevoir. They're like trying to finish their Gardevoir list. I'm like, dude, I'm not playing Gardevoir. Like that's not happening. Like the deck is, you know, there's gonna be so much of it. I'm not playing the mirror. But it was good that I tested against a lot of Gardevoir, because when I was thinking about playing Lost Zone like a week before the event, I couldn't beat Klefki. I couldn't beat Klefki.
Klefki's Klefki Flurman. Yeah, Klefki Flurman.
I couldn't beat it. I like went like 1-8 in like testing games. I'm like, okay, I just literally can't play this. And there's gonna be so much Gardevoir. All the good players that, or all the people who think they're good, but a lot of the really good players, all gonna play Gardevoir. So I'm like, forget it. So yeah, I lose to Andrew. So I'm 5-2 now going into round 7. There's a little bit of pressure on me here now, not because I'm like worried about making day 2, because I like don't really care for this event. I just want to get my invite, which is like not really a good mindset. Don't do that. You want to win.
Always, you should always want to. If you're gonna be there, you should always want to win. Like that's the point, right?
Exactly. But like I have my whole season riding on this. I'm like, for all my friends too. My one friend or my 2 friends that were there, they already had their invites, and the rest of them just weren't chasing. So they had like they're playing for nothing. They're just playing for like just to play and like to try and win. So there's a little bit of pressure. Makes them okay. I have 2 rounds to win 1 set. Like I can do this, right? Like I'm better than so many people here. My deck is really good. I know how to play my deck. Yeah, this is fine, right? So then in round 8, I sit down and I pair against another Lugia. I'm like, okay, this is fine, right? And this guy just in game 1, it's really back and forth, but he is he wins. I think I don't know if it matters because he goes first, but it's pretty back and forth, and pretty crucially, he was only able to get out 1 Cinccino. So when I was able to kill it on the following turn, I was able to go KO his Lugia because he bossed up my Rotom, killed it with Lugia. I was able to go Roxanne Temple, and in that case, it's like pretty backbreaking for them, especially if they don't draw into like any draw support, because he only had a Lugia V, like he didn't have another basic down, so his outs to winning were to draw into like Jamming Tower, Iron Hands, and then top deck like a Gusting Effect or something like that. Because I wasn't able to early kill one of his Archeops. And then literally from there, he didn't draw out of it, and I was able to win that match. It was a pretty back and forth match. The guy was like surprisingly good. I thought he was better than I thought he was. I
mean, if you're round 8 at 5-2, I'm assuming he was the same record as you. So you gotta assume whoever you're sitting across from, they probably know how to play by then. Yeah,
that's true. I mean, I definitely have a pretty big problem of underestimating other people and just thinking I'm better than them.
I mean, having confidence is a great thing, but yeah, like sometimes you sit down, and you're just like, Psh, I got this. But like, there's a lot of people out there that are really good.
I think it's just more of a thing where it's like at Indy and Orlando, like in day 2 in both of those events, I felt like all of my losses were not because I got outplayed. It was just because my deck didn't work, or like I kind of got sacked. Like especially Indy day 2, like I lost to a dude playing Arc Vulpix because both games he went turn 2 just raw in his hand. Like turn 1 he went attached to Vulpix pass, and then he just goes like double turbo energy,
double turbo evolve,
Vulpix V-Star, and then Turo's up as Arceus. And I was like, like that's just like stupid, right? Like okay, you really beat me there, bro, or something like ridiculous. So I don't know. But that's in day 2, so I'm just like thinking I gotta get there. I gotta play against those kind of guys. So at this point, I'm like, X2, it's like anyone can be X2, right? Because making day 2, there's a lot of people that make it 2. But regardless, right? So in the second game, this guy just has like an abysmal start, like opens like 6 energies or something like ridiculous. And he's able to like get out 1 Archeops, but like he gets out 1 Archeops and knocks something out. Like he bosses up my Bibarel, I think, to kill it. And then I just go instantly, like I go boss KO his only Archeops. And then once I kill his Lugia, he just can't do anything. And then he concedes, and I'm like, oh, finally. He goes, yeah, man, like that was a good game, blah, blah. And I was like, oh, yeah, like, I'm just so glad I got my invite now. I'm like, okay, so, like, the pressure's off now. I'm like, you know what? Last round at 6-2, like, if it was, so it depends. Like, if I obviously pair, like, one of my friends or something, I definitely ID, or, like, somebody I knew, or, like, if I knew it was a bad matchup, I would ID.
Yeah.
But at this point, I'm like, you know what? Like, I'm playing out. Like, I have no reason not to play out. Like, I lose nothing here because it's 6-3. I still get my invite. And if I make day or whiff day 2, I just don't get to go to the venue. I'm going out drinking tomorrow. I'm going drinking tonight if I don't make day 2.
True.
So it's like a win. It's a win-win for me, right?
Yep.
So because we ended up going to Bourbon Street the night after day 2.
Nice.
But I was like, this is a win-win for me. So I sit down. Excuse me. I sit down across from a guy wearing like some team jersey from like North Dakota or something. I'm like, whatever. And he sits down. He's like, you want an ID? And I'm like, no. I was like, I'll respectfully decline. He goes, are you sure? And I was like, yeah. So we sit down. He flips over Ralts. I'm like, finally, I hit a Gardevoir.
Nice.
And I completely railroad him in both games. The first game, he literally gets out 4 Curlias. He aromas for 3 Curlias. And I'm like, okay, this could kind of get problematic because he just has so much draw. But he just like doesn't do anything. Like I'm just, you know, he ends up like killing my Pidgeot, but then I just like reestablish another one, and it's just like, you know, it's like nothing. It's like fine. And then in the second game, we end up going to time, and I'm like, okay, like if we tie anyway, it's like fine, like because we're both in day 2, it's like whatever.
Yeah.
And going in at 19 match points feels kind of bad, but it's not the end of the world. So. You know, that happens, and then he ends up like playing out at the end because I have like 1 prize left, and I just like win, or no, I don't have 1 prize left. I have Vacuum in like a 10-card deck plus a boss. Like but it doesn't matter though because if I just vacuum away the thing off the Drifloon, I win. Yeah. So he just like digs through like his whole deck digging for something, and then like he didn't even tell me after the game what he was digging for. But he's like completely whiffed it, or like I don't know, like he was drawing and it wasn't in the deck at all, or like it wasn't in his prizes, so I don't know what he was doing. Yeah. Then he ends up like I ended up winning on turn 3 of turns, but like it didn't matter. Or no, I didn't. He was turn 3, or no, I think I was turn 3 or something. But basically, like we didn't technically finish the game, but I just showed him that I had it anyway, just so I was like, don't feel that bad, I had it anyway. Yeah. So he was like cool about it too. It was really funny. A couple tables down, you know, a character we'll see in a little bit. There was a stall player against like a Pokédad playing Lugia, and the guy somehow got his Ogerpon like stuck because he like ran out of jet energy or something. Yeah. And like they were like yapping back and forth, and this Pokédad was like really mad at the dude because he was playing stall. It was just like he just kept going draw pass. He's like, you know, trying to deck him out. Yeah. So 7-2 at the end of day 1. You know, not the worst, but not the best. But you know, overall, I'm like pretty content.
That's pretty good. I could have done. That's good.
I mean. My only true loss in the day was to the guy who ended up winning, ironically. So can't really complain.
That's pretty. That's pretty baller. Yeah.
I mean, I probably could have won, but you know, it happens at some point. You know, okay, I prized 1 card. Like, you know, it's whatever. Yeah. I probably could have played a little bit better too, but it is what it is. So that's the end of day 1. After day 1, I'm like pretty feeling good. Me and one other person, the other guy with an invite, only 2 people to make it to day 2. We had one other guy, or 2 people lose in the last round, lose their win it in at 17 or 16 match points. So stinks, but I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna hit beer tomorrow. I'm gonna play. We'll see what happens. Yep. So get there in the morning. First round I sit down against Alex Hamilton, who is a New Jersey guy. I played against him before. Big Arctina enjoyer, but I knew he wasn't playing Arctina. So we sit down and he's playing TM Devo in Guardy, so I was like a little bit concerned. Yeah. But in game 1, of course we're sitting there for like an eternity waiting for like the freaking thing to start. Yeah. But basically he opens like not really great in game 1, and I'm able to like boss KO both his Curlias like on the 2nd and 3rd turn, and then he concedes pretty quick. Okay. Yeah. Because he was on 7-2, so he wasn't tying playing Gardevoir, so he's like either winning or losing. Yeah. So the first game wasn't very eventful. Game 2 was really back and forth, but it ended up coming down to he ended up unfair stamping me right at the end and killing my Pidgeot. And then I was really fortunate to draw into Lost Vacuum, and then I was able to Lost Vacuum, bib for 5. Lost Vacuum got rid of his Drifloon. Yeah. And then I was able to, because I was on 3, he was on 1 prize, or no, 2 prizes, and I was able to actually, I didn't Lost Vacuum yet. I waited to draw into Counter Catcher so I could Counter Catcher up his Gardevoir EX, and ended up hitting it because I already had Charizard established. So then I drew into Counter Catcher, or I drew into Arven or something, and I got Counter Catcher, so I Counter Catchered up his Gardevoir, and then I vacked the Drifloon, and then killed his Gardevoir. So I took 3 prizes in 1 turn. Okay. So that was good. And it was good to play against him. I've only played him once before, and he cheesed me with Arctina, so kind of cringe. So yeah, so 8-2, feeling pretty good. At this point, I'm surrounded by Gardevoir and Miraidon at this point, which is really good for me. So I'm feeling pretty good. So next round, I pair against a guy, Ben Doberstein. He's like a pretty well known north western player.
Okay.
So I was like, I didn't know who he was, but I knew he was playing Miraidon because he sat next to me on the winner in round 9 the previous day, so I knew what he was playing. Yep. So I was like, okay, cool. And he was a very, very good player too, which is pretty cool. Also, funny note, the guy who got DQ'd, he got DQ'd sitting right next to us.
Oh yeah.
And literally, we're playing, and all of a sudden the judges run over to us, and Ben was a super nice guy too. It was really funny because he was like, I really have to go to the bathroom. So because we're sitting at table 11. So like once you get to like the front row of tables, you start to get like these special privileges where it's like, hey, like, can I run to the bathroom really quick? And the judge was like, sure. So I was like, can I go with him? Like, I kind of have to go. He's like, all right, go. So the 2 of us walked to the bathroom while the round started. Like, yeah, you'll get like a 5-minute extension. I was like, all right, cool, bro. So we went over there. Yeah, super nice guy.
So this was this the Gardevoir DQ happened next to you? The guy who was like so the Gardevoir stacking?
DQ, so, okay. Yeah, so we were sat next to, it was Andy Gantner versus Noah Sakatagine or whatever his name is. And the judges, so we're there setting up, it was because right at the beginning of the round, because Noah was just on stream, he lost to Henry on stream, Henry Chow. So the judges run over and they're like, stop the game right now. And because they were running over, and I was like, no way they're coming for me, because what did we do? We were going to the bathroom. Yeah. So he comes over and they were like, stop the game, like, Noah, you have to come with us right now. And all of a sudden, like, they leave, but basically they come back like 10 minutes later and like to Andy, like, okay, so your opponent's been disqualified. And Andy goes, what? It was for alleged cheating on stream, like, you have the win, congratulations. And I was sitting there, I was like, what the I was like, what is going on? But my set against Ben is pretty uneventful. I go second. I'm able to get out. I get the Cleffa board, so I don't get my Rotom killed.
Yeah.
I end up going like turn 2. I fish for like Arven, get set up. I'm able to kill his because he went turn 1 Iron Hands or turn 2 Iron Hands, which is happens pretty often.
Yeah.
I'm able to go vacuum off the baton, kill his Iron Hands. He has no energy on board. He ends up having to leave Greninja active. I just boss for Pidgeot for boss, kill his Raichu. He concedes. And then in game 2, it's back and forth in the beginning. He goes hands into a Miraidon, kill on my Pidgeot. But then I unfair stamp him, kill his Miraidon, his only Miraidon with energy. And he only has like 1 energy on Raichu, but with nothing on board. He's also playing EXP share, which I think was pretty good because he was playing like a heavier tool build.
Yeah.
But it ends up hurting him because I was able to Town Store for my Force Seal Stone, and then I was able to Arven for my Defiance Band, which
he was playing Town Store for you. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Which is yeah. So
it's like hard. Like hard to Miraidon, especially if you disrupt them because it has there's no recovery in that deck. There's like no draw power, no nothing.
Yeah. Exactly. And he prized his Mew EX both games, which didn't help. So he had like literally no onboard draw. But he actually pulled it off the prize actually in game 2, and then he was able to like get his hand down to 0, and then he Mews into 3 lightning energy, and then he goes, yeah, you got it. Dang. So he was like, he's scoop. So he was a really nice guy though. But so at this point I'm like, okay, I'm 9-2, right? And then I don't know, I could send you the picture, but I actually got on the stream graphic before round 12.
Nice.
And I was like, all right, like 9-2. I was talking about something like, okay, like I can actually win this. I was like, I'm surrounded by a lot of good matchups. Like I'm like pretty good. And on 20, so I'm on 27 match points at this point, right?
Yep.
I'm looking at the Arcane 9 standings, or like at the standings, and I'm like, okay, there's how many people? I think there was like 13 people on 27 match points. So someone will get up paired because there's an even, that's the way it works.
Yeah.
Someone will get up paired into whatever. But on my record, there's like 7 Gardevoir, 3 Miraidon, a Ogerpon, and a block. And I'm like, okay, as long as I don't pair the block, I just win.
Yeah.
And then all the top tables are all Gardevoir mirrors because I'm surrounded by Gardevoir mirrors.
Yeah, yeah.
And Miraidon as well. I'm like, literally, if I just don't pair the block and he loses, or like if he ties something, I like actually have like a pretty free run to the finals here, like
That's,
or like
yeah,
to top
true.
8, which is like a pretty surreal thing to sit there and think. You're like,
Yeah.
holy crap, like I'm cooking right now. Like this is pretty sick. Because
Yep.
I was also the only Charizard up at these tables at this
Yeah,
point.
yeah, yeah.
So I'm like, okay, this is fine. So I go over and I'm like, okay, as long as I don't pair into block, I win. So I'm sitting there and I actually have, actually, and Cremascoli was also on
Yep.
3 ties at this point. So he was on the same number of match points, but I didn't see. So I'm actually on the phone with Miles before I get on there. I'm like, okay, like I could pair to Cremascoli. Like, what am I doing here? Am I just ready to lose? He goes, well, like, if he gets down 2 Pidgeys, like you kind of just lose.
Yeah.
But like, if just try and boss up the Pidgeys, but don't 2-shot a Pidgeot because you want to burn your bosses. He's like, how many bosses do you play? 3? I'm like, I only play 2. He's like, well, hope you don't get your Pal Pad ears. I'm like, okay, thanks.
Yep.
So, but like, it's even worse. I look at my pairing, and it's Alec Geisler, who's currently getting trolled online right now on Twitter because of some like suspect DMs. But
yeah.
So I pair. Yeah, so I pair him. I'm like, oh my god, and of course the guy comes over with the biggest shit-eating grin on his face because he knows I'm playing Charizard. I'm like, all right, bro, let's just get it over with. Of course, I'm surrounded by that little dweeb Isaiah Bradner and like Hito Arai, Mr. Cheat, like all those guys. Like, I'm just surrounded by Gardevoir players. I'm like, why couldn't I get like a little bit? I mean, granted, I've probably gotten a little bit lucky at this point.
Yeah.
But like, and I've dodged Dragapults because there weren't that many Dragapults still around. But I'm like, okay, like I've gotten pretty lucky with matchups. Like, fine, this is like my one loss, right? So we sit down. I open Charmander. Like my starter's like pretty reasonable, but then his first action of his like because he goes second, and I'm able to Poffin out, or don't even Poffin. I just like open Charmander Pidgey, and I have a Charmander in my hand. I'm like, okay, this is fine.
Yeah.
Wasn't fine. His first action, he flutes 4 basics onto my bench. I'm like, he flutes like Lumineon, Manaphy, Cleffa, and Bidoof.
Yo, like, no way.
I'm like, all right, bro. So. And I'm like, okay, well, that's not good. And, of course, I'm only playing 1 Turo in Pal Pad, so I'm, like, kind of just losing a block anyway.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, well, like, maybe I can do something here, like, if I Iono him. But I'm only playing 2 Iono, which is really bad. But I'm like, okay, like, if his start isn't that good, like, I could maybe, like, try to take advantage of it. Yeah. But he Nest Balls for Rotom and then Seal Stones for another Snorlax. And I'm like, okay, like, I lose.
Yeah.
Scoop, I concede. Game 2. I open Lumineon. I'm like, all right, cool.
Dang.
I open Lumineon, and I'm just like, this is not good. I look through my deck. Turo's prized. I'm like, all right, so I probably just get cooked here. I was like, I have to take some prizes, so I like, because the thing is, I have Canceling Cologne too, which is like, lets me retreat out of it. But that's only one thing, and it's not like I'm taking out the Lumineon into my hand, because with the builds of block at this point, you could Ultra Ball away your stuff, and they can't get it out of the discard.
Yeah.
So, because they're not playing like the Mantine or something. So I'm like, if I just do that, it's fine. But I don't have Turo. So I'm like, I really need to rip Turo off of like my prizes I take here.
Yeah.
Off of like whatever boss and stuff. So I end up, cloning the thing out. I kill with Charizard. He brings it back up. I boss up the Rotom. Or I think I was able to like get a bunch of basics down. I collapsed off the Lumineon. So I only have like 2 Charmanders, my Pidgeot. I think he fluted like Radzard on my bench or something, but I just like want to try and do something. I ended up taking 3 prizes, and I whiffed Turo, and then he brings up another thing, and I have 0 outs in my deck. So
yeah, I just can't retreat or move or anything. Yeah.
So that felt really bad, but that was that's my one the 2% auto loss. Like
that's such a bummer,
what happens,
dog.
right?
Yeah.
So the 2% auto loss, I lose. Yep. It's fine. I'm like, okay, you know what? Like I'm X3. I'm still in contention for cut. So, we'll see what happens, right? Like, anything can happen.
Yeah.
Granted, taking a loss here feels kind of bad, but it's also like, because who knows what I pair against now. But it's what happens, right? So, now I'm 9-3 going into round 13. In a pair against Frank Diaz, who's a local of mine.
Okay.
Now, I know Frank is playing Lost Box, and Frank is one of those guys. He's been playing forever. He has, like, 3 Worlds top 8s. I know he's a very, very good player. I beat him... I think, like, in the last month, I've played against him, like, 5 times at Cups. I think I'm, like, 4 or 3-1-1 against him. Yeah. Or 3-1 against him at this point, because, spoiler, we ended up tying. But he's playing, like, Iron Thorns and stuff. And I know him and Jimmy O'Brien, all these New Jersey guys, I know they're all playing the same, because they're playing, like, Miraidon in their Lost Box list just to, like, get set up and stuff.
Oh, okay.
So, in Game 1, we both had, like, pretty decent starts. But what I was saying before is, like, Frank is one of those guys. He plays slow enough where he's not slow playing, but it's like mind-numbingly just like, dude, please play a little bit faster. I don't want to tie, right? Because at this point, because he had 3 ties at this point. So I'm like, I know he's gonna tie, because he was like 8-1-3 at this point. So in game one, we both get pretty decent starts, but he tries to like outmaneuver me by like Thornsing like late. But I'm just like, okay, like he needs to take 2 prizes because he has no Greninja at this point. It's in the discard box. I've killed it.
Nice.
I was like, if I like gust up his Iron Hands, he has literally no way to take 2 prizes next turn because I had no Pidgeot in play because he had already killed it. So I'm like, he literally can't take 2 prizes next turn because I have nothing that can Greninja anyway. I have nothing that can get Sableye. Like no 2 things that can Sableye. It's like I just checkmate him here.
Yeah.
Which I love checkmating people. Ask Miles about anyone watching this, ask Miles about checkmating people. He's like, that's like it's like the most rewarding thing ever. He can tell you all about it. And I do that, and as soon as I gust up, kill it, he looks at his hand, looks at his board, and then just coops immediately. And then he goes second, which is the correct. In game 2, I kind of had like a pretty mediocre start, and he was able to, but I was able to like get established. He gets all his guys out, and of course, I Roxanne him late, and I'm like, okay, like he needs to draw like the nuts here to beat me, and of course, because he's on 2 prizes, I'm also on 2 prizes, or I'm on 3 prizes, I think. Oh no, I'm on 4 prizes, so I go from 4 down to 2 because I kill his Iron Hands. Okay. And I'm like, okay, I Roxanne him. He's 1 Comfey, 1 Greninja, and a Sableye on board. And I'm like, okay, like I just win here. I just win here as long as he doesn't draw the nuts. And what does he draw? He draws Prime Catcher, Raikou, and then top decks Mirage Gate. And I'm like, bruh. I was like, and I told Frank, I was like, Frank, if you like draw to the Roxanne, you're just a goat, bro. And then he freaking draws the nuts. And I'm like, dude, this guy, bro, like what a joke. So he beats me there, and I'm looking at the time, like 13 minutes. I was like, we are never finishing this game. This guy plays way too slow. But I'm like, Frank, you want our gentlemen's? Because like I kind of want to make cut. He's like, you think you can make it from here? I'm like, yeah, bro. I was like, who are you kidding? So he's like, yeah, well, gentlemen's. I was like, you got to do board state because we can't really do prizes. He's like, sure, like no problem, board state. Yeah. So we get to we both kind of get set up here. I Roxanne him. He draws like Ursaluna Energy Prime Catch off of Roxanne. I'm like, bruh. So it goes down to 1, and I'm also on 2, but he has the Ursaluna in play, or no, he has a Rotom in play. So I'm like, we get into turns, and I'm like, we get to turn 3 because obviously we get the time, and I'm like, I'm turn essentially 4, and I'm like, I have Frank needs to draw like some like 5-card combo off of Roxanne to win. And I'm like, okay, like, can you get there? And he's like, well, like, let me see. So he plays, I was like, just play face up because, like, it doesn't matter. So he plays face up, and he, like, digs really deep into his deck. Like, he hit, like, all 3 Comfey, Greninja, like, Colress, everything. Yeah. And he whiffs. And then I flash him the boss that I have. I'm like, I have it. And he goes, tie. I'm like, really, Frank? And he's like, yeah, tie. I was like, dude, like, come on, bro. I was like, 11-4, like, I said 11-4, but I was like, 33 match points is still money, right? He goes, yeah, I'll take the tie. So I'm like, whatever, dude. So at this point, I'm out, and I'm kind of tilted. I'm like, I can still, like, make money, but, like, at this point, I'm like, because at this point, I'm only paying for money. Yeah. And I'm just, like, really tilted. I'm like, come on, Frank. Like, you ain't got to do me like that. Like, it's one thing if I'm, like, a random person, but, like, I know.
Yeah, you kind of know each other. Yeah.
Exactly. Now, for Frank's benefit, I'm moving out of New Jersey, so another person that's not. I don't have to see him anymore. But I was like, man, it's like whatever. So 9-3-1 at this point, really deflated. I'm like, man, like, I just want to get out of this. At this point, I just like don't even want to play anymore. I'm like, get me out of here, and it gets even worse. So round 14, I pair against a Miraidon. So I'm like, okay, like this is good for me. Except the guy's playing a much heavier, like, Bravery Charm build of tools. Like, he's also playing a tool build, but it's a much heavier build. Yeah. In all 3 of our games, though, I just have the most atrocious starts ever. So he wins the coin flip, goes second. I get a really bad start in game 1. I end up getting my Charizard out, but then he just, like, and I'm able to get, like, his kill on Iron Hands. But the thing is, instead of putting the baton on there, he puts the Bravery Charm, which I'm like, okay, like, this is kind of fine. But for whatever reason, I decided that instead of punching in, because he took 2 prizes, instead of punching into the Iron Hands, and then, because instead of punching in Iron Hands for 240, I just, like, made some other play, and, like, I tried to set up more, because, like, my start was just, like, super bad. Yeah. I had to Rotom, like, 4 times. but not thinking that I'm like, I could just take a 4-prize turn later by vacking. Now,
Yeah,
granted,
with
it gets
vacuum, yeah.
punished by a switch card, but he was already down 2 switch cards at this point. So he needs to play 3 and then
Yeah.
also have it. Because his deck was pretty big. But I made some other play, and I still had outs to win. But of course, off an Iono to 1, this guy draws a research, and then he researches into Prime Catcher to beat me. I'm like, okay, bro, like, you got it.
Yeah.
So then, yeah, in game 2, I get a decent start, and I ended up rolling him like pretty quickly. Because at this point, we had 25 minutes for game 1, so I'm like, I just need to play so fast.
Dang,
So I was playing super fast. I won game 2, but it was another thing of where like I know I win next turn, but this guy just keeps playing, like he's just playing it out, and he's like, he's not slow playing, but he's just playing slow.
Yeah.
And I'm like, dude, can you play a little faster? He's like, yeah. But he's not playing faster. So at this point, I can't call him for slow play but I just want him to play like excessively fast.
Yeah.
Because I know I can win the set. I just gotta freaking finish the game. So we're going, and he finally like scoops it up, and we have like 11 minutes left, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like I can't believe we're gonna tie this, right? So I go first, and I just have another atrocious start. I'm like, come on, dude. Like, can I please get Candy Pitch Candy Star like for the one time? Because at 10-3 I can ID, which 10-3 ended up bubbling top 32 and top 64. But I would have ID'd. I probably would have ID'd, but I can also win the last round for top 16 or top 32, whatever.
Yeah.
So I'm just like wanting to play. We get into turns, and I'm turn 3. And I can win because I play fast enough where I got a kill on his squawk ability. So I was able to I'm like, okay, I can win this game. It's going to be excessively hard because I'm down so many resources and my board state is so bad, but I can win.
Yeah.
And he just needs, but the thing is he has the prize lead. So when I shoved the Radiant Charizard at the end of so I was turn 1 because I was turn 1. So I shove Radzard, and I'm like, okay, like and the thing is I still have Rotom on my board because I haven't been able to collapse it because I've just had to prioritize just going fast.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, and I go Roxanne, shove Radzard, kill his only thing with energy. I think it was a Miraidon or Iron Hands, right? So it's the only thing with energy, but he has a board on his Greninja or something, so he's able to like pivot.
Mm-hmm.
So I Roxanne him, and this mother effer draws he didn't have, actually I don't remember what he had. He needed one other piece. Oh, he needed, yeah. So I Roxanne him, and this mother effer hits Prime Catcher, Blood Moon Ursa Luna, and Lightning Energy off of the Roxanne. So he could kill my Rotom.
Yeah.
I'm like, are you kidding me? I'm like, what a joke. At this point, I'm so tilted. I like don't even say they could get. I'm just like, I signed the slip, and I just like I'm just like shaking my head at this point. I'm like, unbelievable. Like, what a turn of events the second half of the day. Just like the second half of day 2 just don't like me.
Yeah. Man.
At this point, I'm just like, man, like this is ridiculous. I'm gonna whiff money, all this stuff. Like I knew I'm whiffing money at this point. I'm like, this is so ridiculous. So 9-4-1. I'm just like, oh man. I'm like, this is so bad.
Yeah.
So then in round 15, I'm like, I just want to leave. I'm like, I'm not gonna drop because I still want to like.
Yeah, just finish it out. You're right there. Yeah.
I said if I whiff 10 wins from 7-2, I'm gonna be really pissed. So I pair against Noah Kaiser, who's an Indiana person. So I see his name. I'm like, I know who that is. So I sit down. Noah sits down. He's like, hey, what's up?
Yeah.
It's like, hey Noah, and he's like, oh, like I know you. I was like, I know you. I'm like,
yeah, the guy with the Noah, the beanie guy.
Yep,
exactly. Yeah, from he plays in Kokomo a lot. Yeah, he was playing Guardy, right?
Exactly, from Kokomo. Yeah, he's playing Gardevoir.
Nice.
So I sit down. I'm like, no, you want to do like a best of 1? Like, I just don't want to play. Like, I'm really tilted. He goes, let's just do best of 3. I'm like, sure. Also, like Noah, I go second or something, or he goes first, and he's like, hey man, like, are you cool if we just like look at prizes? I'm like, yeah, like that's fine. And then I was gonna say like on your first deck search, but he just picks up his prizes and looks at them. Or no, I was going second, or he went first, but didn't get a deck search. So he asked me on my first turn, and I'm like, I know like Noah, like I don't know him personally, like I know who he is.
Yeah.
But I'm like kind of sussed out because like if I just like pick up my prizes, he could like call a judge and then get a penalty on me.
Yeah.
Like at a thing, which would be like super scummy thing to do, especially when we're out of contention.
Yeah.
But I was like, yeah, like that's fine. But I was like, on your first deck search though. But he just like picked up his prizes and looked at him on his turn, and I was like, okay, like
sure, oh, that's what he meant.
Like whatever. Yeah. So once he picks his up though, I'm like, okay, it's fine. I can look at mine. And of course, my prizes in like both of the games we played were like totally fine. Like they were just nothing. It was like one Charizard and like a Fire Energy.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So yeah, so that is fine. In game 1, it's a really long and drawn out game 1. and it comes down to where I need to draw like a really weird combo. Like my Lost Vacuum was prized, and I ended up like drawing it off the prizes, and he like Roxanne me or Iono'd me into like a kind of awkward spot, but I was able to maneuver out of it, and I was able to take the 3 prize turn by going vacuum, knock out his guard EX.
Yeah.
And it was like 30-minute game 1. I was like, I really don't want to tie this round, but
jeez,
like
yeah.
I also am not sure that we can finish this game here.
Yeah.
But I was like, I'm gonna try. And in game 2, he has a much better start where he gets all 4 curlies out. Like I missed a turn to attack, which is fine. But against Gardevoir, it's a little bit suspect, especially when they have 4 curlia, because they like can get their board a lot more established.
Yeah.
So I'm like kind of sussed, but it ends up being fine because I start putting some pressure on. I think he prized his Heavy Ball and his Drifloon because he kept making some weird plays, like going around the Charizard KO with like Flutter Mane, which is like fine.
Yeah.
But it's obviously good for me. And then in the late game, so he gets down to 1 prize. I have 3, but I rip Lost Vacuum off the prizes, and I'm like, okay, like this is fine. But my hand was like, because he had just Iono'd me, and my hand was like just big enough where I was able to go Counter Catcher up the Guard EX. And then the thing is, I needed to get another energy because he had Counter Catchered up a Charizard with no energy on it. And I had to go Candy Zard into another one, but I had Ultra Ball in my hand. And I was like, I can't Ultra Ball away my Lost Vacuum. But I was like, how am I getting out of this?
Yeah.
But then I realized, I was like, wait, like, I'm going to Lost Vacuum something away, but then I take a prize. So I just Counter Catchered up the Guard EX first.
Yeah.
And then the card I need to Lost Vacuum away, I just Lost Vacuumed. And then my prize card, whatever it was, because it didn't matter.
Ultra Ball that away.
I just Ultra Ball that away, Candied into Zard, Super Rotted energy back, you know, and then put energy on and knocked it out and won. And Noah was a really good sport and stuff like that. Because we were in turns when we did it, but he was like, yeah, like I was just gonna, you know, I was like, I can't win that game anyway. Like, well, like you definitely could, but you know, my board state was pretty good. So that was good because the thing is, I thought I had it, but like the way I told Noah I had it, he's like, no, you're 1 card short. I'm like, I put my hand down, I'm like, okay, like I'm winning this turn, I have it somewhere. So I was like, okay, wait. So and then I mapped it out. I'm like, okay, I do have it, and I showed it to him, and I did it. And he's like, okay, yeah, you got it.
Nice.
But I just really didn't want to tie. So yeah, so that was the end. So 10-4-1.
Luckily, you got to end on the win. That's got to feel good. Like after how the day went.
The win felt good. Yeah. But it's funny because it's 3 day 2s in a row where my day 2 record is 3-2-1, which feels really bad.
Yeah.
Especially being so close to money. 2 events in a row and missing both feels so awful.
Yeah.
Especially because the flight to Hawaii was not inexpensive. That would have paid for my flight if I had gotten
that's for sure.
Well, top 64 would have got 2K, so I would have got more.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that was the end of it. I finished 76. You know, the record is really not as, you know, finishing top 128 is really not kind of indicative of the day I had. I feel like.
Yeah, it's nothing to scoff at though with the amount of players that were there, but yeah, unfortunate rounds in day 2, but hey, you know, it's just gonna happen. You know. It happens.
Yeah, like all you guys know, like I like to win, and like especially being so close, like when you're sitting at table 7 or table 6 at an IC, you're like,
and then you hit the one, like, and then you hit the 1 lax. It's like, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it felt really bad, but it's also like one thing that especially I'm really I fall victim to this a lot where it's just like you get really disappointed if you like don't get there. It's like, you know, it's like, okay, like I obviously want to win, right? So like at a league cup, you can get mad for not winning because it's like, okay, like I should have won, I got sacked, whatever.
Yeah.
But like at these big events, like, can I realistically expect myself to win the event? Probably not. Like, no.
Yeah.
But you want to try and win, especially when you're right there. It's like, you know, I'm here. Like I put in the work for this. Like I'm ready. Like these guys got to beat me too. Like I got to beat them, but they got to beat me.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So. You know, you can't really get too disappointed. Like, obviously, I wish I could have got. I mean, money was attainable. That was something that was just like egregiously thrown. Because if I had beaten the Miraidon, I would have paired against Alex Shemansky, who's playing Lugia, but he was playing No Sinnoh. I just completely destroy him.
Yep.
And if he would have played it out, I would have won anyway, and I would have won 11-3-1, which looks a lot better, and also would have got me 3K for top 32.
Yep.
Which would have been nice. So it's like, you know, a lot of if-ands things, but you could also say like, you know, I hit 3 like Thorn stacks day 1. Right?
Yeah,
like those are just good matches.
Yeah,
so it's like
you still like you still had some you had a lot of favor day 1. It sounds like just for the particular matchups and like
exactly
the Iron Hands decks or Future Box or whatever was like so prevalent because of all these Lost Box and Guardies, and then you got to prey victim on those. That's just a good matchup for Charizard. So.
Yeah, exactly. Now, it's a little bit of metagame, too. It's like, yeah, like, I knew there were going to be a lot of decks, and, like, my deck had a favorable matchup against it, but you still have to hit those matchups, right?
Yeah.
Like, I could have easily paired, like, EUIC. I could have easily, like, I paired Block in round 1.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you just can't do anything about that. Like, it's just the luck of the draw.
That's the hardest thing now at any event is that you can metagame the best out there, and then there's 3,000, 2,000 players, and you sit down and you just play something so wacky, or you just like I 0-3'd at Charlotte. It was a pretty big event, but all the 3 decks I played were just they were not decks. Like, I couldn't beat them because like my deck wasn't built to beat that. So like, it just happens.
Yeah. No, I was there same thing. Charlotte, you remember I played 5 Charizards and 2. The one event I don't play Gardevoir. I play Mew. I hit 5 Charizards and 2 Roaring Moons and a Gardevoir. I'm like, what is going on here? But it's like, you can't do. I'm surrounded by Lostina, but I'm playing against Charizard. It's like, I gotta do what I gotta do. It's a bad matchup, but I could beat it, and I beat most of them. The only guy I lost to was because I threw like a moron and got unlucky. But it's fine. But overall, can't really be too unhappy. Also, like, look at this one. Like, I got my invite. I was there to get 5. I was there to get top 512.
Yeah,
a little bit better. Yeah. Feels good. I mean, wish it could do better. I'm just saving it for Worlds. So
there you go, and then we'll get the interview after that too. We'll get an interview after Worlds. It'll be sick.
This 14th best place becomes the first place.
Yes, sir.
Worlds.
Yes, sir.
So, we'll see what happens. I really overall can't really complain about the event. I mean, you can lament about bad matchups, but like, it is what it is, right? And I played against the winner, which is pretty funny.
Yeah, that is cool.
It is what it is. So I appreciate you having me on here, but
sir.
I don't know if anyone is coming to Hawaii, but I'll be there and we'll see what happens. I mean, I want to play Charizard at this point, but I don't know. We'll see. It just seems like the Dusknoir seems really good, but I haven't beat Regidrago yet in testing, which is really bad.
Yeah,
so
Regidrago is kind of nuts. We'll see. Yeah, I think the deck has so many tools. It's just like it's like kind of like a Lost Box. You have so many options in Lost Box, but like Regidrago, if you hit the right stuff, you also have like 10 options of just like picking the one thing that destroys your opponent. So it's pretty sick. Yeah. I expect to see the deck a lot. Good, yeah, that card is nuts. So, but anyways, shout out to Michael. Thanks for being here. Appreciate you explaining all your matchups. So if you guys want to find Michael, where can they find you? You're on your Twitter, stuff like that, or what?
Yeah, I mean, my Twitter is at Christmas, like the holiday TCG. I just post like when my tournament results, and you can't see my light anymore. But I just post my tournament there.
All right,
that's like my only post on social media. But also, like, if you're in like the Discords and stuff, you can always send me a message. About anything. I don't really care. I'll answer stuff. So, but not that my resume is that impressive, but I'm a locals demon, that's for sure.
Locals demon, and you know what you're talking about. Anybody who listens knows that you know what you're talking about. So
that's true. Yeah, ask me about any deck ever, and I'll tell you the lore, bro.
All right. Well, hey, thanks for checking us out. Like always, drop a like, subscribe, do all that kind of stuff. Throw some comments down there for Michael. I'll put his list in the description and his Twitter and that kind of stuff. So if you want to find him, you can find him. So, all right.
If you want to use the list, just cut the Canceling Cologne for a 4th Buddy Poffin.
There you go.
Because you don't need Canceling Cologne at locals. But other than that,
that's
perfect
true.
list.
All right. Take care. See you guys.
All right. See ya.